this presentation to be extremely interactive. And my thought process is, I think my presentation is going to be very different than my two co-panelists in the sense that I will describe how we've embraced social media. And I will start off by saying, in the grand scheme of staff augmentation firms, Robert Half is about as conservative as they come. We are extraordinarily buttoned up as an organization. When I first joined, the company, social media was, absolutely an afterthought. And a few years later, there is daily Twitter content being pushed out to the field, so we can go and drive that content to our clients and go get involved in the conversation in that way. So I just wanted to start off with a really quick show of hands. For people in the room, just raise your hand if you're currently utilizing LinkedIn. And keep your hand up if you're using Twitter as well. A little bit. So Twitter, not so much. We are in agreement that Twitter's probably the one. I think most corporations have come to the point where they understand LinkedIn. It's not challenging to wrap your head around the professional and practical use of LinkedIn in the workplace. But from a Twitter perspective, that seems to be an area where people are still on the fence. And Facebook's pretty much a no-no. Right. Is that what people are experiencing for the most part? Okay. So, that's absolutely the way that the progression came down the road here. We've even started to use Facebook more to advance our brand from a corporate perspective. But LinkedIn was obviously the first and most obvious area of opportunity for us from a recruiting and branding perspective. And it really got to a point where when we wanted to get a sense of where current CIOs stood on this issue, we just polled about 1,400 CIOs to get a sense of how they currently perceive LinkedIn as a professional tool. And over 65% in a recent study said that they feel that it's valuable within the workplace. And that they see a practical value, and that's virtually doubled in the last year. At the time that I did the presentation on the WB, it was very much. I think there was that universal concern for how do we get our people to use this tool the right way, and how do we monitor it, and what specifically constitutes. Or just what constitutes the good type of value add that we hope that these tools can bring for us. So the first thing that that I would say for my industry is the best part about these tools is the access to knowledge, the knowledge transfer that is immediately accessible at our fingertips these days, and I think that if you're in sales, or if you're any sort of professional that's looking to advance your career, it's important to become part of the conversation and be a consistent member of that conversation. And the best part, in my opinion, about these tools is their scalability. And I know we're going to talk about that. A conversation that starts off as one service desk professional reaching out to another, trying to understand the best way to troubleshoot an issue, can very quickly become a much larger conversation where you've got people that are sharing ideas that maybe the organization didn't even think to try. Things that can help save an organization time, help save them money. But I think that one of the most important things that that people need to embrace about these tools is the need for consistent usage, and that it's not an immediate, none of these tools are immediate gratification, right? And I think that it takes time to build up a brand, to be recognized as a member that's contributing substantial and valuable information to the conversation, and someone that's going to do so consistently. So, if we're talking specifically about LinkedIn, and I'd just like to also see a show of hands, people in this room that are currently involved in a group on LinkedIn. Okay, so that's a lot of people, right? And I'd also like to see a show of hands of people that their corporate entities have a group that they've created for dialogue internally. So that's significantly fewer, right? And I think that a lot of times, depending on the size of the organization, there's sometimes a there's confusion about who's going to handle this, if there isn't an individual that's specifically dubbed to be that point of contact internally for for social media. But one thing I can't recommend enough is that for any organization that doesn't currently have a group internally, that where there can be a rapid dissemination of ideas and people can exchange information back and forth, that it's important to go back to the office and advocate for that. Because I know that the content that we drive out, and we have a site administrator, which is very helpful for us, given the size of our organization. But I think that it's definitely something that's easily built into marketing communications or PR within an organization. But just how much valuable information we drive out through our group, and it just I think gives our internal employees a voice. It gives them a platform to go communicate more of their experiences, what's working well for them, what's not working well for them. And I think until we get to a place where we're on firmer economic footing, people tend to feel much more comfortable when they understand how other people are feeling and how other people are coping and the experiences that other people are having. So, but specifically what I wanted to talk about was how we utilize social media from a recruiting perspective, because that's what what my organization does. So I guess I'm sorry to poll the audience so much, but I'm interested to see just a show of hands for people that utilize LinkedIn currently as a recruiting tool. Okay, so very, very few, right? And I can
as companies or as
recruiting internally for your own company, right? So very few. And who have used it from a job search perspective? So still a few more, right? And we've gotten to a place as an organization where we have drastically scaled back our national partnerships with the traditional job boards, whether it be Monster, Career Builder, Hot Jobs, and Dice, and we have scaled up our alliance partnership and relationship with LinkedIn because we understand that with 50 million users, that's the wave of the future. That's where we have the greatest access to talent, and there are so many tools as it pertains to using this application to go and find people that maybe won't be the employees that are going to come and work for your company today, or people that you're going to go and work for today, but people that will be your future managers and employees. Right? And I think that's just an extraordinarily important piece. I'm always pushing my people to make sure that they are constantly keeping their profile fresh. And I think a lot of people don't give that a huge amount of thought. They've got a profile. It gives kind of basic nuts and bolts about their company, what they do, their role within the organization, but they don't think about how they can update changes in their job. They can update changes in what they're experiencing in the marketplace, how their role's changing, areas of expertise, and specifically how they're experiencing changes and trends in the marketplace. Because what you'll find is the more up to date you keep your profile, the more relevant, the more fresh, the greater the likelihood that someone out of the blue will start dialogue with you, which could potentially open you up to that next great professional experience, that next great employee that's going to come in and help you get your business to the next level. And quite frankly, what's going to lay the groundwork for your professional career trajectory down the road.
So if I've spearheaded a recently big project and accomplished something,
yep,
I should go in and update my profile, because as opposed to waiting until I leave that job to go to another job, I could just refresh it and say, this wasn't there before, that I have this big accomplishment.
Sure.
That I just achieved.
Without question. And the best part about having these connections is that, on a daily basis, when you're updating your profile, if you change anything as small as your picture on something like LinkedIn, if you change, a position title, if you change an award or an accomplishment, the people that you're connected to see that.
Right.
And it gives them an opportunity to reach out to you and explore what specifically that was about. and I think that's really important. One of the most common, I think one of the most common missed opportunities with these tools is that everyone uses them with the best of intentions, and just by virtue of the fact that you're sitting in this room, you've demonstrated the fact that you see the value in networking, right? And you meet a lot of people in this room, and you have a lot of really good conversations, and you understand how those people could potentially be a resource for you down the road, or you could be a resource for them, or there's opportunity for you to save each other time and money, or put each other in a better place down the road, just as it pertains to your career or efficiency in your job. But a lot of people then go directly back to their desk, and what happens? Life generally happens, and you've been out of the office for an hour and a half this morning. You've got 100 emails that have piled up in your inbox, and you don't think to go and reach out to a person. And one piece of advice that I always have for individuals that are starting to build their LinkedIn profile is commit to, as you start to build your contact base, and when you're out of the office and you're meeting people, the importance of real time connecting. Right? You get back to your desk, immediately reaching out to the individual that you've had an experience with, and and getting that connection started, because you will forget. We all have too much going on, from a day-to-day basis. So anyone that does, in this room, I'm just interested to know if there's any feedback on people that do use Twitter for professional use and how they use it. And what specifically has that experience been for you?
How I really use it, I usually use a search. And aside from following companies, I kind of see what the search is about and find the people who are within those people, and then find out how many people are really following and who's following them. And then from there, I do another breakdown. So it's like it's like a Russian doll. You go to the core of who's really starting the conversation and the time frames.
Yep.
And then I just look through people through there, and then I find out, like, all right, this person does this. I'm basically hit them through Twitter, through a DM, and then we'll speak from there.
Okay. So you go directly for them with the DM, or do you ever ask for the intro?
For those who don't know, what's the DM?
Just a direct message, right? So on Twitter, it's not just about it's not just about pushing out content that can be seen by all of your followers. You can also reach out to people directly and start some dialogue based on the content that they're pushing out to you. Right?
But only if you got the relationship.
Only if you have the relationship, right? Only if that following relationship is actually set up in place. But I think what he's referring to is definitely a more sophisticated approach. That's a really easy modification or change in just operating procedure as it pertains to social media, which is one of the most common. I think one of the most common misconceptions that I hear is that people reach out to connections of their connections and expect immediate response, right? Whereas, in life, if we're just talking about people and someone wants to meet someone else, it's usually much easier to get the introduction to be facilitated through that central party. And that's one of my greatest recommendations for LinkedIn is, it doesn't have to be all electronic, but there is a feature on LinkedIn, and just show of hands, people that are utilizing the get introduced through a connection feature. People are using that, which is an absolutely spectacular tool. So if there's someone that you're not a direct connection of, this is something that in my opinion has been an absolute gold mine for us. Is getting the person that I know has the rapport or has the in with the audience that I'm trying to somehow get in front of or somehow start speaking to, and get that person to facilitate the intro. I'd much rather have it be a warm introduction as opposed to have them feeling like I'm someone else that's just trying to solicit some sort of information, because they don't understand what your intention